Yes, my friends, here we are. As I said in the intro, it's so cool when you get a chance to platform and engage with and share time with people who have not just been an inspiration from afar, but have impacted the community that you live in. And Brother Luck here is one of those people. We both, in our various ways, have been involved, especially in the hospitality and the service industry. But not only do we share that, but we've done it in our city. And we've taken the time, we've taken the licks, we've invested in this city. And so I am so honored to share some space with someone who has honored the city I love so much. So, Brother Luck, thanks for being here on the Tyler Hill podcast.
No, what an honor. Thank you for the invitation.
So before we get into the stories, before we get into all the wisdom and the journey, we're more than what we teach. We're more than what we say on our platforms. Tell me, Brother Luck, if you had, say, a couple $100, you actually had a free weekend and you could do what you want with your time. What brings you life? What's fun for you? What just gives a nice little spark for you if you had a little bit of time to yourself?
I think the most important thing is, taking care of your mind is like the secret recipe. And you've got to find the things that really engage you beyond your profession. Because we chase this identity of work and that person that we've created because we're in control of that person, but we lose ourselves in making time for ourselves. So, if I got a weekend to focus on me. I'm probably in the summer going to go golfing. I
Love it.
think that's definitely going to happen. Living here in Colorado, I might go skiing. Always enjoy being outside. So I think those are two beautiful parts of healing that I trust. Um, and the third, I might just jump to Vegas and go watch a DJ play because I'm into music and I'm into spinning records, and
Oh yeah.
Vegas is the mecca right now.
I love that. Tell me how, like I would assume, Brother Luck, that you haven't had that posture for your whole career. You know, in terms of like saying, man, there's actually parts of me that isn't a chef. And we'll get into the cooking, we'll get into the food and hospitality. But for many of us, we didn't just come upon our passions and say, oh, there's all these other aspects of me that help me be whole, that help me be human. How did you begin to develop that posture and that perspective that says, wow, I am more than a chef? Most people would look at you and that's what they would assume. Um, how did you come to that journey and how would you advise people to begin exploring, say, maybe you are more than what you do? Maybe you are more than your career.
I was watching Dirty Dancing, right? Iconic.
Mhm,
And nobody puts baby in a corner.
mhm.
And that sticks with me because nobody puts brother in a corner. And that's how I think about it is I got into culinary out of necessity. This was about survival. This was never about this is my career. This is what I'm going to be doing. I was hungry. I needed food and kitchens supplied that. It was a very, you do this, you get fed, guaranteed, and a paycheck on top of it. At some point, though, chasing validation and approval in my career broke me. It broke me mentally, it broke me spiritually, it broke me physically. And I needed to really better understand what had happened to myself in the past that pushed me to this point. Because what I'm supposed to be celebrating as huge wins and career achievements, I'm broken on the inside.
Yes.
And when I started the process of discovering my past and facing the mirror and opening up those closets and breaking down those walls that I built to isolate myself from pain, I realized there's so much more that I'm capable of doing. And I started embracing the uncomfortable. And that's pushed me into platforms and worlds that I didn't even know were possible. To be a speaker, to be a writer, to be a business owner, to be more than just a chef
Mhm.
is very exciting. And I love that piece of it right now.
Yeah. So, what would you say? Say there's a young woman or a young man sitting in front of you who has spent much of their life building a brand, like, that's so much of how we're told we're supposed to exist, to make your personal brand, find a niche, when you can speak to the people and be yourself. I mean, we're going to talk about being a DJ and hospital. Oh, we're going to talk about all of it in a minute, but what would you say to someone who has just completely boxed themselves in? Cool, brother Luck, that's awesome. You hit the top and now you can explore. Um, what would you say to someone who's maybe building their life, building their career, searching for their identity, knowing what you know as you've experienced it?
I would probably ask the question, how lonely are you?
Mhm.
How lonely are you? Because I think when we push ourselves to that extreme and we build, which, there's nothing wrong with building, but we get to a point where we isolate ourselves. And then you look around and you have no invitations to any events. You have no friends calling you. You have no real support system besides your colleagues.
Mhm.
And that for me is where I always ask that question, how lonely are you? Because you're an easier target when you're by yourself. You're easier to pick off. And the problem is you've done that. You've separated yourself from the pack. And now as you've built all this, you're vulnerable.
Mhm.
And the thing is the person hunting you is actually you.
Mhm.
You are the person that knows exactly what to say to break yourself down. You are the person that knows exactly where you're weak at. You know the chink in the armor. And you're going to tell yourself every bit of what you don't want to hear when you're alone, which is why we drown out so much of the noise is we're trying to avoid what we don't want to talk to ourselves about.
Mhm.
So I asked that question because I think it's important to say, what's the point if you've built all this amazing stuff and you're alone?
Yep.
Because when you're down, who's by your bedside? Who's calling you to check on you when you're in the depressive state, hiding in the basement or hiding under the blanket? Like, who's checking on you? You have to focus on your circle. You need your 12. And I always say that, like, who's your 12?
Mhm. It's crazy how you just described that, bro, because that was literally my experience. There was a moment I had, we had been building the coffee company, and I tell the story a lot, but I had a 6 week period where my son was born, my mom died, and we went from 12 to 24 employees in the coffee company, all in a 6 week period. And I kept working for about 6 months, didn't stop, you know, and I woke up in my friend's basement. We were living with some friends at the time. I had woke up in their basement and I had been sleeping for 8 days after grinding like that for 6 months. And that's what really began the shift for me. But, yeah, I had no sense of doing anything other than building the coffee company and literally I was in a basement alone, sleeping by myself. Just like you said, literally that was my breaking point that began to send me on my healing journey and sobriety and all of that. Um, would you be willing to share at all the moment that began to shift that for you? That like was there a breaking point or was it a slow burn that said, okay, here I am, I've hit the pinnacle and maybe we'll tell some of that story, but and then I've really shifted towards health and healing both physically and emotionally and spiritually.
Yeah, it's been a process. But I think the biggest moment for me was while filming my second season of Top Chef, I tried to take my own life. And being in the hotel room alone with myself after being rejected, after not winning, after feeling like I let people down, I got so in my own head, the traumas and the wounds of my past just it was the perfect storm. And I made a decision to give up on myself, which I'm so grateful I wasn't successful at,
Mhm.
because it was a split second decision that could have had long lasting impact for many people who love me, people who depend on me, people who care about me. But I couldn't see past all of that.
Mhm.
And it still wasn't enough at that moment, because I went right back into distraction. I went right back into work. I went right back into, yes, I need help, but I'll get to it. And it was this gradual process of starting to go to a counselor, starting to talk it out, starting to share and be vulnerable and realize I wasn't alone in the depression. I wasn't alone in the anxiety. I wasn't alone in the pressure that I was carrying on my shoulders. And I started to find tools and resources, and it just kept building, and it's just pushed me into this arena where I'm a very open book. I'm not going to hide anything. There's a struggle every day, and we have to depend on our systems. We have to depend on our foundation to be successful in it, because life is hard. It doesn't get easier.
What are some of those tools that you really rely on? What are some of your best companions as you sit here now post a season of growth and healing?
I can't even make this up. I literally, so I put a post out this morning because, I'm going through a season right now and I feel it. And I literally posted my today's to-do list. One, write it out. Two, connect with your people. Three, do a hobby. Four, fuel the body. Five, get in the kitchen.
Mhm.
Like, that's the five things I'm doing today to get myself through this funk that I feel coming on, because I'm getting attacked and I feel the pressure, and I'm being faced with really serious challenges, and I'm going back to just the basics of, like, here's five things that I need wins on, that I know I can do, that are just going to kind of restart my mindset of, like, face it, because that's the problem. We don't want to face it most of the time.
Yeah.
So I think we have to get back to those things, which is, you know, simplify your life as far as what restarts you.
Yeah. And I just want to like call something out in the room right now. And I feel so honored that you would even share vulnerably. Like you literally said, man, I'm going through a funk. A funk is coming on. And I think like, like you're a well-respected, admirable person, right? Big following, been on TV, blah, blah, blah. And you're not immune. And not only, of course, you're not immune, but that you're also willing to share it on the internet here publicly. Um, First of all, thank you. And second of all, like that's why I want to interview you. The vulnerable honesty is someone that I want to follow. You're somebody I want to learn from. You're somebody, and I think for all of the folks listening, like those are the types of people we want to follow. Not the ones who pretend to be immune, but the ones who are vulnerably honest. The ones who can say, "Man, I am going through some shit." And this is how I get it through. Those are the people that I trust because they actually know how to get through it because they're willing to talk about it. So I just want to call that out, bro, and say thank you for even saying that today and for showing up today too. That
Oh,
also means a lot, man, because I know for me, dude, when the depression visits, I want to turn it all off and
yeah.
not show up and not do my thing. So um take us back a little bit, brother Luck. And we can go through this quickly, but for those folks who like don't know you, you talk about the pinnacle like metaphorically, right? We're on TV, we're doing all this stuff. Um, how did you even get there in the first place? Like you mentioned, you started to cook out of necessity. Give us a little bit of insight. Like where did Brother Luck come from? How did he get in the kitchen? And what was that ascension like, kind of to that breaking point, if we were to go back in time a little bit?
Yeah, this is the result of many, many hours of therapy. So just prepping y'all. It took me a while to get to this understanding. My story is rooted in love and tragedy. And as a child, my father passed away when I was 10 years old. It was very sudden, it was very quick. And my mother was left to take care of two young boys in an urban environment. I grew up in the Bay Area in San Francisco, Oakland, Vallejo, and she did the best she could, and I can say that now because I can look at her as an adult, not as a child to a parent. She did the best she could with the situation she had. And sadly, it put us as children into situations that weren't the most positive, and it forced us to grow up very quick. And for me, I think kitchens, getting into them in a high school, teenage level based on necessity, food insecurity, I found validation and approval from grown men. And it's because I didn't have a father in my life. So chefs for me were the good job, son. They were the pat on the back. That was the applause that I needed to keep pushing me forward because I didn't have that. And my whole career turned into chasing that next nod, that next approval, that next award or accolade. Everything was about, good job, son. That was never there for me. So when I got to a point of deciding I wanted to do television, it was out of ego and it was out of telling Guy Fieri and Triple D, their show, when they came to Colorado Springs, I didn't want to do it. Like I declined to be on the show because I thought I was too good to be on the show. I was like, I'm a chef. I wear a coat. I'm not a diner, a drive, or a dive. Like I'm a culinarian. And it was so egotistical for a young business owner, a young chef to think. And I regret that decision because it was free exposure, it was free marketing, it was an attachment to a bigger brand, and I couldn't understand that at the time. And when I spoke to one of my mentors about that conversation, he was like, "You're an idiot." And his disapproval pushed me even harder to say, "No, I'm not." So now it was like, I'm going to be on TV. And I got on Food Network shows and I got on Top Chef and I really started to build, a platform. And that's where you get lost. I think you're chasing the rush, right? The adrenaline, the dopamine that comes from the likes and the attention and the articles. And it wasn't until COVID where I really was like, why am I doing this? Like I realized, especially during the pandemic, how disconnected I was from my business, from my people, from the mentorship that I preached so much about. I realized, especially during that time, and I lost one of my chefs, he passed away during that time, how precious life was. And I knew I needed to make some serious changes for me. I needed to make some serious changes within my businesses. And I've really just been on this road of trying to figure it out. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm not going to preach like I do. And I think we measure ourselves against everyone's greatest hits when we look at social media. And like, that's not real. Like, half those celebrity chefs that you guys like and see their stuff, I know them. They don't live like that. Like they're struggling too. They're going through it too, but they're just giving you this portrayal of I've got it all figured out. That's to me that's horrible to try to measure yourself against because they got a parking ticket that day. They had to do some dishes. They had to argue with someone. Like they had bad things happen to them in their day they're just not talking about. And it's why I share so openly about it, especially on platforms like this.
Yeah. So we get into the kitchen in many ways to grab the approval of a male figure, which is something to a primal level we all need. Where have you begun to source the connection that we you need as a human being? That hasn't gone away, but finding it in some of these more sort of carnal places don't always satisfy. Where have you begun to derive your purpose, your belovedness, your sense of self? I mean, still, my mom is still passed away. your dad is still passed away.
Yep.
And all the therapy we've done, where have you begun to sense that meaning and that purpose from? What has that looked like on this journey?
You know, 2 years ago, I was in like a really dark place, and I was injured. I was having multiple surgeries. I couldn't walk. Um, I was extremely overweight. My medical, all my blood work was off the charts, and I was just depressed. I was disconnected, and I remember standing in the mirror one day and making eye contact with myself, and I just started to cry because I really saw myself. And I started to yell at myself, and I got angry with myself, and I got determined with myself. And that was the beginning of my discovery to say, this is about the mirror. This is about the conversation that we have with ourselves. I didn't like myself.
Mhm.
And I think when we chase validation, we chase approval, we seek all of those accolades, especially in our careers, we're looking for something that only we can give ourselves. You have to like yourself. I tell people all the time, my confidence today is not born of cockiness. It's born of pain and struggle and lessons. I like myself today, which is why I'm more confident.
Yes.
And it's why I've been able to go on this amazing transformation because I've learned to smile back when I see myself in the mirror. I like what I see, but I've also done the work. I've not shied away from those depressive situations. I've not shied away from what I've got in my closet. I'm dealing with it, and I'm talking about it, and I'm working through it,
Hmm.
and I'm bringing people in to support me, which is everything. And 90% of my circle has nothing to do with my career.
Oh, that's so good. What would you say then is the difference for you, right? So ego takes you to this place that didn't serve you very well. And now you're here saying, yo, I love myself. And I'm sure you would still say, I'm a really good chef. I'm a really good restaurateur. I'm good. I'm proud of who I am. I'm confident. What's the difference there of like the ego as you've begun to understand it, this sort of like this persona that did not serve you well and living still in full confidence and having this healthy view of yourself? In, for example, the Christian sort of old conservative cultures I grew up in would say, you got to be meek, you got to be humble, just go sit in the corner and don't let anybody see you, don't say anything, be the one that nobody can see. What does that look like for you to be this way in a healthy way? What are the differences?
Well, I think the biggest part is it's okay to be vulnerable. Like,
Mhm.
talking about your mental health, talking about um, feeling weak, that doesn't that doesn't define me, right? That's where I think it's so important. Like, being myself is the best thing I can do for myself. And I need to embrace that because I'm a one of a kind recipe. Like, there's nobody like you. There's nobody like me. We are all individual, which makes us authentic, which makes us original. And you have to embrace that. That is something so special that we forget because we're trying to emulate and we're trying to become instead of saying I exist. So, I start there,
Mhm.
and I really start to just kind of focus on who I am. And I'm okay with making mistakes. I'm okay with not having it all figured out. I'm okay with getting it wrong. That's going to happen. That's inevitable. It's how you deal with those situations and how you move on and how you pivot and how you get up and how you fight back. That's where I'm more focused in my situations as these hits keep coming.
Yeah.
Okay, what are you going to do about it? You just going to take the punch, or you going to start to duck and dodge and move around and maybe even swing back? Like,
Sure.
you can't just take the punches and just, man, that stuff hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. You've mentioned a few times now in different ways about your community. Like, who's your 12? You mentioned how a lot of your inner circle is actually not people in the industry. In my work with so many of my clients, loneliness is one of the most potent things that is hindering and hurting our society. How have you been able to, especially outside of work, outside of the culinary world, been able to cultivate intimate friendships with people to help combat the isolation that is hurting so many of us?
I'm willing to make new friends. And I think a big part of our society is built on who's your day ones because we have trust issues, right? If you haven't been with me and been my ride or die for all these years, we can't be friends. Well, seasons change and leaves fall. So some of those people aren't in your life no more for a reason, right? Whatever it is, they're not in your world anymore. And now you're by yourself. And if you're not willing to make new friendships and put yourself out there and be vulnerable and not put the trust issues that you have from a previous experience with someone on a new person and give them the chance to break your trust and give them the chance to be successful at a friendship, then you're gonna be lonely. And I'm so aware of that to where, just in the last month, I've had coffee with like two or three different individuals, two or three different guys to just talk,
Mhm.
right? To just talk. How you doing? We might have met each other at an event or in passing or, brief conversations here and there through social media, but like let's have a real conversation and see where this goes because that's the foundation of a friendship, right? Is communication. And you've got to do the work and they've got to do the work and you've got to take the initiative. Like the phone works two ways. Make the phone call or shoot the text message and be like, "Yo, let's go do something."
Mhm.
More, especially men, more men need to do that
Mhm.
because we are so bravado in our mindset that no, I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to put myself out there. Why not? You might meet somebody who's going to become a day one for you for the next 20 years.
Yep. Yeah. I think, that whole like the phone works both ways is so potent. Like if like one thing I say a lot, I said this in a workshop a couple weeks ago, was like if we are as lonely as all the data is showing, this is actually there's never been a better time in history to actually make friends. If you're in a room and everyone is lonely, most people will say yes if you're willing to actually ask. But everybody's just looking at the room thinking nobody's inviting me, and then nobody invites nobody.
Yeah.
But there's actually never been a better time because most people are so desperate for it. If you just ask, damn, it's gonna happen, bro. And yeah, but you gotta make the call. You've got to make the call.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone is very voyeuristic now because of social media. You're watching stories, you're watching reels, you're scrolling and you're seeing glimpses of people's lives which make you think you're attached to their lives or you're involved in their lives, but you haven't talked to that person in years.
Yeah.
Just because you watch my feed doesn't mean that we actually have a real relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm very big about this. I will intentionally text people or call people to be like, "Hey, I'm just checking on you. I don't need anything. I don't want anything.
Mm.
I'm just extending." And I think that's what we need more of is like people being willing to do that because
Yeah.
that's what actually gets people to go out together and spend time together and go do something together. And that's what we need more of because this younger generation who's growing up on these phones, it's completely different. They're disconnected. We're seeing it in the workplace now. They're disconnect from, you
Mhm.
know, interaction and conversation is apparent. It's so apparent. Like they don't know how to talk to each other.
Yep.
Like if you ever see kids at a school bus stop in the morning,
Mhm.
they're like, 20 years ago when we were those kids, we were like fighting and playing and bagging on each other and joking and talking. Now they all stand there on their phone and
Mhm,
not one person talks to the other.
mhm,
Like that's our society right now.
mhm, mhm. What I really hear you circling around is this idea of hospitality in some ways, inviting, welcoming people in. How do we get people off their phones and into the eye contact and into the same space? Hospitality obviously being a core of what you do. What could we learn to kind of double down on what you just shared? Maybe from the dining room, from the bar top, in terms of cultivating good spaces for hospitality and human connection. What can a chef or a maitre d' or a great bartender teach us in terms of living well in society outside of the kitchen?
Well, the beauty of hospitality is we get to be with people usually at some of the best moments of their lives. They're celebrating, they've got family in town. Like we get to see that every moment. And it allows us to be engaged with it and be a part of it. And there's a piece of that that I think is so important to bring back into your own life of talking with your bartenders, talking with your servers, talking with the cooks and chefs. Like we are we have to talk to each other, right? We have to talk to customers. So we're forced to do this. This is why I think everyone should work in the hospitality industry. You're forced to talk to people. Whether you're in a kitchen, I've got to communicate. Hey, behind you, moving left. Where's that prep? And if I'm on the dining room, I've got a good morning. How are you today? Welcome to 1118. Welcome to For My Brother Luck. Like I have to have a conversation and it builds character. So I love that that's what we get out of our industry.
Yeah. Yeah, we're forced to be put into situations where conversations have to happen.
Yeah.
What?
With different people.
Yes. Yes. And I think that right there is the key. And I'll be honest, since I've left the industry, I get to speak with people in their most vulnerable moments. But one of the things I miss so much is that everybody that I work with, my clients, whether it's in breath work or sobriety or whatever, there's it's in the same lane where when I used to be a barista, when I opened the principal's office and I was a bartender, it was random. I had no idea politically, socially, economically who was coming in, and the ability to hold space for all sorts of people was such a gift. And I'd say it's funny. I have a saint candle with Anthony Bourdain on it right here because like I can remember growing up and when I first got in the industry, and of course I just watched all the shows and just watched the way in which he was so curious with other people. Growing up in a really dogmatic environment, I never knew how to like be around people that were different than me. And so the service industry changed my life in that way. It changed everything. I mean, I think I'd be a pretty dogmatic, fundamentalist person if it wasn't for the industry. What would you say then to somebody who, okay, maybe they're not going to work in a kitchen or behind a bar? What could the server or the bartender or the sous chef teach us? Is it how to ask a good question? Like if I was to go watch somebody in one of your restaurants and say, I want them to teach me how to live in society well, the same way Anthony Bourdain did for me, what could they specifically teach us to help us grow?
I spend a lot of time doing keynote speaking now, and one of the things that I teach the most is our mental mise en place. The way hospitality people are trained from day one to think about the problems that are going to arise and how to prepare for them and adapt to them is is unmatched in any other industry. And I didn't realize how valuable that skill was that we all carry as hospitality professionals.
Mhm.
We have everything in place as a mindset. It's the ultimate business plan. We literally think about
Yes.
every situation that might happen and we prepare for it so we can get through it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think that is something that any person in the hospitality can teach you, is this ability to have everything in place and prepare and
Mhm.
plan
Mhm.
so you can survive and overcome.
Mhm. So in terms of your mental health, and I know we're doubling down, but I think it's worth going here. Okay, that makes sense. In a kitchen, we have backups of things and we've got extra equipment. We're ready to go. What does that look like for you in your mental health or in your soul health to have a mental mise en place? And maybe could you describe what that means as well? Like what does mise en place mean really quickly for the person who might not know?
Yeah, so mise en place is a term, it's a French term that we use in the kitchen, and it means to put in its place. And every restaurant operates on the idea of we have to get ready. We have to set up our stations with our glassware, with our plateware, with our serviceware, with all of our ingredients. We've got to stage things. That way, when the guests arrive and they start giving us requests, we can execute in a timely manner. So it's a very organized, structured way of thinking and setting yourself up for success. My mental health is my mise en place. If I don't set it, my whole day falls apart.
Mhm.
So I have to think about my day as my mise en place. And this is where, I teach a lot of this with time management. When we're kids and we're going through the school system, we're on such a regimented schedule. You get up at this time, you get to the bus stop at this time, school starts first period at this time, recess, lunch, you dismiss at 3 o'clock, go home, do your homework, play till the lights go out. I'm showing my age, and then
Mhm.
go to bed. Like you're on such a strict schedule the entire. As soon as you get out of school system, you're like, I'm just gonna work on my work schedule. Like that's all you have is your 9 to 5 or your 12 to 8 or whatever shift you work.
Yeah.
You only focus on these 8 hours. We stop scheduling our lives,
Mhm.
which is your mise en place. Like if you're not scheduling your life, your work and your personal, you won't find balance.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as work life balance. You just need balance, and you've got to stop thinking about it as work and life. You need to schedule everything, which is
Yeah.
why calendars are so important. Like, utilize your calendar, manage your time so you can be more effective.
Yes. 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 Mm. That I love that so much, bro. That gets me so fired up. Also, that was probably really good for my marriage, what you were talking about in terms of like, you know, like even when we like put together our kitchen, and where do our plates go? And me and my wife, we're always going back and forth with this and how do we do our dishes and stuff. And I'm just like realizing the way in which my kitchen mindset is like so foreign to her. Like I'm actively thinking about it's like, okay, I probably need to chill out a little bit. And just in terms of like this isn't a kitchen, this isn't a restaurant. And yeah, anyways, I yeah, that you just helped my marriage out a little bit talking about that
Yeah,
because
now go schedule a date night.
yeah,
What
for
I'm about to
sure.
do after this, I'm going to
Yeah.
schedule a date night
Yeah.
because that needs to also be part of
Yeah.
that schedule. Like,
Yeah.
you've got
Hell
to
yeah.
figure out how all this stuff goes together.
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna pivot just a little bit, but I have to because this means the world to me. You have a restaurant called Four by Brother Luck. And the concept here is the Four Corners, the Southwest, um, New Mexico, and the Four Corners. I was born in Farmington.
Mhm.
I ran my first marathon on Navajo Nation. Literally ran through the Four Corners. There's a marathon that you run through all four states. Um, After my big health journey, that was the pinnacle. So my goal was I was gonna get sober, lose all my weight. I actually went vegan for and like changed. I lost 60 pounds. And the pinnacle, because it's my home, the land really moves me and matters to me. I ran my marathon through the Four Corners. Um, so tell us a little bit about that, the Southwest. Like it's magic to me. It means more than anything.
Yeah.
Tamales and pozole at Christmas is just everything in my soul. So if this is just for me, not even for my audience, how did you get to this concept? What does the Southwest, this land, this cuisine that is just so unique?
Yeah.
Just speak into that a little bit. just to indulge me, if anybody.
No, I love the Four Corners. I moved to Arizona when I was 14 years old,
Okay.
and Arizona is a very special place for me. And being in the desert, being on tribal land, being in the mountains of the desert, which is crazy. Like I remember the first time I went to like Prescott and Flagstaff, and it was like snowing. And I'm like, we're in Arizona though. There was cactuses and it was 120 degrees. Like I got to experience that for the first part of my career. Like I went to high school there. I went to culinary school there. My career really took off there. And Arizona has always been a special place for me. And eventually I landed here in Colorado. And it's home for me. I love Colorado. Colorado is absolutely stunning. So I think when we live in these Rockies and above the desert, what I found through a journey through Japan was I was studying kaiseki food, and I had the opportunity to actually go work in traditional kaiseki restaurants, which is very inspired by the season. There's four seasons, but there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to every season. And things are perfect at certain times of the year, which is when we use them. And to see an entire culture agree that this is the time of the year we should be serving this fish this way, like that just that's
Mhm.
it was powerful for me. And then, these scallops are perfect from this part of Japan, and this beef is perfect from this part of Japan, and this sake is perfect from this part of Japan. Like
Mhm.
everything has its region. And I was sitting on a beach in Kanazawa, and I remember rolling on my BlackBerry, like I like scrolled out, and I was like, "What's so cool about where I live?" Because I was closing street eats at the time, and I was trying to figure out what my next concept was going to be. And when I zoomed out, I was like, "Well, it's the Four Corners. That's pretty cool. Like that's the only place four states touch."
Mhm.
So then I started to kind of question who are the people of this region, and I went on this deep dive of culture and existence. And when you get into Europeans who pioneered West, when you get into Spanish who were on a conquest for trade and religion, when you get into Native American cultures, you start to see the story of the dependency of life from the top of the mountain where the water begins and how it flows down into the desert and dries out, and how the food changes and how the life changes, and the dependency of the seasons are everything. I teach my cooks this all the time. You have to think about food and
Mhm.
ingredients as if you didn't have a refrigerator. Like
Mhm.
you work so hard to plant this and till the soil and grow it and then harvest it after fighting through every bit of summer.
Yeah.
You harvest it, and now what do you do with it, right? So now you're preserving and you're smoking and you're drying and you're canning and you're jamming and you're confit and you're doing all these things to survive the winter. So the menu should reflect that mindset, that style of survival, because that was Native American culture. That was the cowboy era. That was how
Mhm.
they had to make it. So four for me is a connection to that. Is we start at the top of the mountain where the water begins, and as it melts and it runs down the mountain, it changes. So I didn't want to just focus on Colorado as my cuisine because that's not really real. Like eliminate the state lines, look at the landscape. And the landscape is what my story's based on. So this region, it's not just Southwest, because I think when people ask me what kind of food I cook and they're like, "Oh, you cook Southwestern, but you live in Colorado."
Mhm.
That's not really the Southwest. They only think of the desert.
Mhm.
To me, the Four Corners encompasses all of that because we are the top of the mountain, but we do have the high desert and the low desert. And that elevation is the story. So four is inspired by that.
Mhm. I love that. What Well, kind of tell me just a little bit of your green chili opinion around here because that's a thing very clearly, and that might dictate the rest of this podcast here.
No, the thing is like when I travel, and I
Yep.
get to cook, and I get to cook all over the world. I'm very blessed to do what I get to do, and I love being a brand ambassador for this region. And I
Mhm.
say that intentionally, not this city, not this state, even though that's what I represent.
Sure.
I'm an ambassador for this region, and when I cook outside of this region,
Mhm.
people don't know green chili.
Mhm.
They have no like I was cooking in Manhattan, and I'm doing an event for like 900 people with all these celebrity chefs, and I'm doing our green chili cornbread.
Mhm.
And people are like, "What is this?"
Mhm.
And I've as much as we have the battle between New Mexico and Colorado, the green chilies are indigenous to this region,
Mhm.
and the climate and the preparation and the history and tradition. And I think when we take that to other areas like Hawaii or Japan or Italy, they are so blown away by our thought process of how we prepare. And that's what I love about showcasing green chili in so many different ways.
Yep. Mm. I can
But Hatch
remember.
does have a better marketing budget.
Yeah, that's fair. That probably is what a lot of it is. Dude, I can remember I moved to I moved to Colorado in college and I can remember I was going through a dark season. And then there was a pizza place from New Mexico called Dion's Pizza, which is kind of like whatever, but they had green chili and they from Albuquerque. And I can remember I was just so sad and I just went there and I said, "Can I just have a bowl of your diced?" Because it just tasted like home. And
Yeah.
I literally was eating green chili by a spoon, just crying at this pizza place. I wasn't even eating the pizza. I just wanted the green chili from home. And it just, it was my good friend.
It's those
Um,
triggers. The
yeah.
smell of those chilies being roasted outside in that roller, that's a very powerful scent and smell for all of us in this region. The smell of corn for me also, like charring corn on the grill in the husk,
Yep.
just triggers something because of Arizona.
Mm.
So like I love that I get to bring this region to life
Yes.
on such a different level because people don't expect it. They just expect the Southwest, which is very influenced by, Central and South America and Latin America.
Yeah.
So, I like that we have our own style of food because it is a
Yeah.
blend of culture.
I can remember as a kid, the first time I went to California, and I was like, the Mexican food here is going to be so good. And I remember going and being so disappointed because I didn't know that New Mexican food was different yet. It just
Yeah.
was my home food. And I was so confused. And then that was when I first recognized, oh, there is like, I come from a place.
Yeah.
And that being in New Mexico was not Mexico. As funny as that sounds, like, oh, all Mexican food is the same. And that was the first time I was like, oh my gosh. And it was just a funny, big disappointment I had as like a 7-year-old. Um, Tell me a little bit about sobriety. And you're also a part of a really cool project happening right now in our local community here. Just tell us a little bit about that journey and this super dope project that you're a part of right now.
Yeah, I just hit my 2 year, which is very powerful. But it was a story for me. I did it for me. I didn't do it for anybody else. Like I wanted a lifestyle change. I knew I needed a lifestyle change. And a lifestyle change is going to require you giving up something you don't want to give up.
Mhm.
And I love wine. I love spirits. I love the story. I love the scents. I love the flavor profiles. I love the characteristics. I love the people behind it, the passion that they've poured into these products we get to serve. We get to take these ingredients that they've manipulated and then we get to reinterpret them with a whole new inspiration of our own story. And I love that part of what I do. But I also knew that for me, I was in a cycle that I couldn't break. I couldn't tell myself no. I had no portion control, right? I utilized my job as justification to say, oh, I'm working. Well, it's 10 o'clock and you're already doing the tasting. And now it's 2 o'clock and you're drinking a bottle of rosé. And now it's 7 o'clock and you're sipping these wines as a pairing. Like and then you go out after work. So I was just in this like endless cycle that I just couldn't break. And that led to like, poor diet, that led to lack of exercise, that led to a cloud of funk, that led to, your stomach's always upset. Like I didn't feel good. And I knew I needed a lifestyle change. So um, I just made the call and I was like, I'm not going to drink today. And that turned into, all right, I'm going to get through this weekend.
Mm.
And then I was faced with one of the hardest things. I flew to a chef conference in San Diego and I was around 300 chefs with open bars. And I was like, I'm not going to drink this weekend. And it was the hardest thing that I had ever done to be around my peers with everything available, sponsors and vendors and,
Mhm.
everything you wanted. And I made it through that weekend. And that was kind of like, if I can survive that
Mhm.
and still have a good time and still be present, I'm going to keep going. And it was never like there's an end date goal. I was just like, all right, well, now I'm going to go for 30 days. Now I'm going to go for 60. Oh, well, if I did 60, well, I can do 6 months. And as I've hit 2 years, like now I don't even care. Like I don't have the peer pressure of I feel like I have to drink because somebody else is drinking. I know I'm not doing it for the education because I know what it tastes like. I know what it's made of. I know the compositions. I can still smell it and pair it. So I'm not doing it for that side of it. And I'm not willing to borrow time from tomorrow to numb myself today.
Mm.
So that's just kind of why I can't justify to myself why I would want to drink because I'm having so much fun sober and I remember it all.
Yes.
And it's a great feeling. So I'm kind of riding that wave and we've started some great projects from that. Sober Week is something I've done for a couple years within my own restaurant group. And it was really about just discouraging our team members from staying out late and hosting early morning activities for them to do. So they had to get up early. And it might be kickball, it might be hiking, it might be charity work, it might be yoga in the restaurant, but we did something every day for a week just to kind of change the discussion. And that turned into a partnership with a variety of nonprofits. We just got done doing the Sober Soiree with Homeward Pikes Peak, which works on recovery addiction um, and like rehab. And that was a 300-person event. This was the third annual one that we did, where we had local bartenders doing mocktails and we had chefs providing food. And it's amazing that we can comfortably talk about it and have better options. And I think we're seeing on the market better products. I mean, you're seeing the phony Negroni or you're seeing the Amethyst where they're putting capsaicin in the spirit to make it have the feel of alcohol. Like it's crazy how it's advancing to make you still feel comfortable with something in your hand
Mhm.
while you're at an event.
Yep. Yeah, that's so good, bro. Yeah, it's changing. The movement right now is so inspiring to me. And I mean, I'm about to go do some breath work at a rehab center right after this. And yeah, man, it's just crazy, man. The freedom that can come from making a choice for yourself like
Yeah.
that is just so special. Speaking of yourself, as we begin to wrap up here, one of the exercises I do with a lot of my people, and I've begun doing it with my guests here on the podcast, is we live in a time, and you've hinted at this a few times, where we are not very good at loving ourselves. And the comparison, the social media, you've touched on it in a few ways. What, Brother Luck, do you love about yourself?
I love my ability to laugh at myself. And I start with the mirror. I think that's an important part of the smile back to my reflection turns into a laugh. And then it's uncontrollable. And I think there's something so special about the ability to smile and laugh with yourself
Yes.
because that is comfort. I think when you can drop a wall and you can smile and you can laugh, you've got comfort. And you've got to find that within your own reflection. That's probably the one thing that I probably love the most about myself. Like I'll go in the mirror and I'll roar.
Mm.
And it's awesome. It's like such an invigorating feeling and it's so funny and it's just me. It's just something I do, but it puts me in a better mindset because it's goofy and I think we have to have that.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. What a great exercise. Um, Last question, I'd love to just hear a little bit about. I know we're coming up on time, but outside of the kitchen, one of the things you also do is you love music. You mentioned going to Vegas and watching a DJ. Tell us a little bit about that passion. What does it do for you? What about it is so sacred and special and life-giving for you outside of the kitchen? And then maybe if you could just speak a little bit into as we wrap up hobbies. And you mentioned that's on your list. Do a hobby, not work. So talk to me just a little bit about that and share with us how that is so impactful and helpful.
Yeah, I mean, music's always been an escape from reality for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, many of us get lost in the headphones, in the records, and that's always been the case. I needed something to fill my void, especially when I stopped drinking. I needed something to do with my hands, especially when I got off of work and I'm decompressing and I'm not just sitting down with a glass of whiskey and decompressing that way. So DJing has become that. It allows me to put something on my ears and disconnect. It allows me to do something with my hands, and it's extremely creative. You know, the same way I curate a menu for a guest experience, I curate a playlist for a crowd.
Mhm.
I have to give them an appetizer. I have to give them an entree. I have to give them a dessert. I've got to take what the producer did or the farmer and reinterpret that with my own voice, with my own perspective. So I love that. And it's unlimited education. The technology is moving so fast. The music is so vast. I love that it's unending education, just like cooking or hospitality. So for me, that's my disconnect. That's a great hobby that I have, and I'm always immersing myself into that world. But I think you have to find those things. You know, during the season, golfing is a great thing. I love it. It's a game against yourself. There's no defense. Like I can learn so much about a person by playing golf with them because you wear your body language based on your decision making in the situation that you're presented with. Like it's such a psychology game, which is why I love it because it's a game against yourself. Skiing, I think, is a very similar thing. Your style of skiing or snowboarding speaks volumes to who you are, like how you embrace the mountain and how you ride the mountain and how you work it. And like, are you willing to overcome those fears of standing up there on a really high slope and saying, I'm going for it? Like, there's something exhilarating about that. So I'm always looking for stuff like that to fuel my curiosity and fill my voids.
I love that. So what I hear there for those of you who might say, I need a hobby to help me be curious. As the great Ted Lasso would say, be curious. We've got to be curious in that way. And my hunch is those records, that music was something that made you come alive when you were a kid. I bet
Absolutely.
there was and if we are willing to just go back in time just a little bit, usually we already know what the hobbies are when we
Yeah.
were freely and fully ourselves as a kid. Are you like a hip hop, a punk guy? You know, what's kind of, yeah, keep
I
talking
play
about
a lot of
spinning
house
records.
music.
Yeah, okay.
You know, my father was really big
Cool.
on funk and
Mhm.
R&B and that whole era of doo-wop,
Yeah.
and his record collection was amazing. So, you know, it's funny when I play music, as much as I'm a hip hop lover,
Hmm.
I spin a lot of groove house, a lot of soul house, a lot of funk house because it just does something for me internally, and I think there's something beautiful about that sound. So, um, you know, to me, it's all music. It all goes together if you find bridges, and that's what you got to do with your transitions is find great bridges.
Love it. Brother Luck, where can people find you? Where can they find your work?
Yeah, man,
Um,
you could follow me across the board at Chef Brother Luck, every social media platform. Uh, chefbrotherluck.com is my website for speaking, for motivational, for restaurant courses, all the stuff we do there. My book is online and it's on Audible. No Luck's Given. Life is hard, but there is hope. You can definitely check that out. And if not, come see me in a restaurant, have a conversation.
All right, so there it is, my friends. Chef Brother Luck in the house. Thank you so much, my friend. This
Such
is
a pleasure.
I've learned, I've grown, I'm better for having spent an hour with you, bro. Thanks for making the time.
Absolutely.